First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
Happy Thursday, folks, and good afternoon to you. Welcome in another beautiful beach day. Look just how blue and clear that ocean water is out there. Rip current's not too bad either, only about a low to moderate rip current risk. So overall, pretty nice day to head out to the beach. No storms to be concerned about, not only for all of you out at Jax Beach, Atlantic Beach, Ponte Vedra, Volano even. Storms much further to the west. So another pretty dry evening for the Jacksonville metro area. Jumbo shrimp are looking good tonight. We've watched that sea breeze work its way inland here now. Overall, still predominantly easterly flow. At the surface, winds have been a little bit more out of the southeast today rather than completely eastward. At least through the first portion of the day, but still those mid-level winds are continuing to be out of the east, so that's helping to push and steer that east coast sea breeze just a little bit further inland and a little bit quicker here today than it will here over the next several. So because of that, our storms well off to the west. We had a couple isolated thunderstorms down, I believe in southern St. John's, Flagler, and then Putnam County. I believe there was like a 30 to 35 mile per hour wind gust in recorded right around Palatka there in central Putnam. But otherwise, storms not going to be too much of a concern. So let's show you what the satellite's looking like. You can kind of see where that sea breeze is set up. So just past pretty much the western edge of Duval County, headed out into Baker County. You can see a little bit of some storms firing up on the far western edge of Clay County heading into Bradford. So there is still some rumbles of thunder out there, but the vast majority of the activity is going to be further off to our west, out toward I-75, and then eventually to the Gulf Coast. So here's another way to look at it. You can see the strongest, wind gusts or wind speeds currently, I should say, are all pretty much from the beach over to Highway 301. West of 301, that sea breeze has yet to make its arrival, and that's why we're going to start to see even more thunderstorm activity begin to fire up further off to the west, out towards Columbia County and down towards the Gulf Coast. So, couple, again, isolated thunderstorms there for Putnam and Bradford County. Not too worrisome. So a few rumbles of thunder, some flashes of lightning, and some heavy rain moving into the Stark area. But otherwise, that is the only storm that we have in the First Coast, or on the First Coast here. Everything else, like I said, much further off to the west, and will continue as such the rest of your Thursday night. Now, besides the storms here today, which we thankfully are not seeing a whole lot of, the heat continues to be a big talking point. Pretty much from the Mississippi River over to the eastern seaboard, we have discussed it and talked about it here for really about the last 3 or 4 days now. The excessive or extreme heat warnings, I believe the National Weather Service called them, most of those are gone. Besides southeast Ohio and western West Virginia, they still have extreme heat warnings. But everywhere else still dealing with those heat advisories where temperatures are still in the low to mid 90s. Real field temperatures in places like Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Richmond, Virginia even. Those real fields still up to about 100. So I know that's how it is pretty much here every single day, but those folks who live a little bit further northward aren't necessarily dealing with that or used to that type of heat and humidity like we are here in southeast Georgia and northeast Florida. But still quite warm. Hopefully by today's the 26th of June. Hopefully at this point in the month you have gotten used to it. We had a very warm May, actually the warmest May on record for Jacksonville. And the month of June, we've only had 3 days that were below average. The rest of them, I think that's now 22 straight days of temperatures above average. Or maybe I think it's 21 straight days, maybe 22 days total, but 21 straight days, 3 weeks of above average temperatures, all of which have been above that 90-degree mark. So the streak continues here. We're currently at 92 degrees. You factor in the humidity out there, feels like in the mid-90s from NAS Jackson, Orange Park, up to the airport, St. Simons Island, Brunswick, all the same. Beach is feeling a little bit warmer. Mayport specifically there, real feel of 100. So, yes, it is warm, but not the worst that we have seen here, at least even this week and over the past several weeks. But not just the heat. We also haven't had any measurable rainfall in Jacksonville now for a full week. That's now going to move out to 8 straight days because we didn't see any here today for the Jacksonville area, and that's what we expected. We were really watching pretty much from Highway 301 westward out towards I-75 and then the Gulf Coast for those storms to develop. This is what models are showing you here. So really even the most or the majority of the activity is going to stay even further west than I-75 here tonight. Now, let's speed it up ahead. We'll show you what tomorrow is looking like. First half of the day, you're looking good. You got outdoor plans, you're fine. It's going to be warm. It's going to be muggy out there. But there is going to be a much weaker easterly flow, not only at the surface, but aloft as well. So that is going to allow that Gulf Coast sea breeze to work its way inland much further than it has really over about the past week now. We've been in this pretty strong easterly flow for about the last 5 to 6 days. So tomorrow is really the first day that we're actually going to see some convection initialize out towards the Gulf Coast and then right around I-95. And some of those storms will drift back toward the east. And we're going to break it down a little bit more detail here for you for a second. But just be mindful, if you have Friday night plans, don't cancel anything, but there will be some more storm activity in the area. The majority of those storms are going to be just west of the Jacksonville metro, so the west sides and western Duval County over to probably the western sides of Baker County, and a similar story for Clay and into Bradford. That's really where we're going to be watching for storms. So as I said, first half of the day you're looking good. Afternoon highs in the low 90s, and then we will watch for that thunderstorm development. So here you go. Beaches. Could you see some rain? Yes, but it's still looking pretty slim to none for you folks out there along the coastline and the shoreline here. But pretty much from the 295 Beltway or even I-95 west out to Highway 301. So 301, runs through western Nassau, Duval, and Clay counties. That's really where we're going to watch for that thunderstorm development, some of the potentially stronger storms, and then even a little bit further westward from there. So much better chances for rain across some of our more not only inland locations, but western sides of the metro here as well. Now, as we head into the weekend, changes are on the way. As I said, we've been in that easterly flow, primarily, not just at the surface, but primarily also aloft in the atmosphere. This upper level low that we've talked about now the last several days, it's been situated across southern Florida the last 2 days today, over central Florida, really tomorrow, and then into the weekend. That's going to shift over us, and then off to our north is going to set up shop in central Georgia. As we're on the southern end of that, the flow is now going to be much more out of the west and southwest as we head into the weekend. So our steering flow is much more westerly than it will be easterly. So in contrast to last weekend where we had very strong easterly flow, it kept us completely dry, and all the storm chances were well off to our west, out toward the Gulf Coast. Completely different scenario. Flip it on its head, 180 here, and we're going to see all of those storm chances now situated much closer to the Jacksonville metro area and the I-95 corridor. So here's kind of another way to look at it. Especially when you're looking at the surface as well. So that was the overall steering flow of where the storm motion will generally be. Tomorrow, winds pretty light besides, over by the coastline. Sea breeze works its way in. We're going to watch for those collisions just to the western edge of the metro area. We've kind of already talked about that a little bit. But I'm going to speed it up here. I'm going to show you Saturday. Even by, 8, 9, 10 a.m. Saturday morning, you'll notice a very light southwesterly flow. So once that Gulf Coast sea breeze develops and starts to move inland, it's going to, propagate eastward rather quickly. And that East Coast sea breeze is going to be pinned right up along the beaches for a large majority of the day. It may only make its way inland as far as 95, if that. So because of that, when they do collide, and you can almost see it here, those collisions are going to be right over downtown Jacks, the south side, Yulee, Callahan, even, Orange Park, Green Cove Springs. You're going to have good chances to see some strong thunderstorms because that's where the Gulf Coast and the East Coast sea breeze are going to eventually meet up. And that's going to be the scenario for both Saturday and your Sunday here across the First Coast. So because of that, we've issued those weather impact alerts for both days between 2 and 8 p.m. That's going to be your best window or best time frame to see some of those thunderstorms. We're not expecting widespread severe weather by any means, but I think there will be the potential for some pretty strong downdrafts. So not only with regards to the heavy rainfall associated with those, but the downdrafts themselves could produce wind gusts of 40 to 60 miles per hour. So be prepared. There could, or I do fully expect, specifically on Saturday and Sunday, for at least one or two strong, if not isolated, severe thunderstorms to pop up along that sea breeze, especially, I think, on Saturday. So here's kind of another way to look at it. Sorry, I have to scratch my eye. I have an itch. I apologize. But we'll take you through Saturday afternoon. Models trying to kind of show you what I just mentioned. A little bit more activity and some stronger storm reflectivity values trying to show up there, up and down I-95. So whether you're in Flagler, St. Johns County, all the way up to Brunswick and Glenn or Camden County even, most of the heaviest storms are going to be along 95. And then, thanks to that steering flow that I had shown you, so it's out of the west, once they ignite, the majority of them are going to move east and offshore by sunset. So it'll be a stormy afternoon, but by sunset, most of the storm activity will continue to push offshore. And here's another way to also describe it as well. That storm motion is going to be from west to east. This is what we're talking about, like mid to upper level winds steering those storms further eastward. So not just the sea breeze itself, but the storms aloft. Sunday, not going to be as much of a steering flow. So what does that mean? The cells that ignite, those thunderstorm cells, they're not going to necessarily move offshore. They might just kind of linger around a little bit. They'll produce these outflow boundaries. More storms will start to form along those boundaries. Thunderstorms can merge. We call those cell mergers. And in those scenarios, you can get a lot of rain in a very short amount of time because they're just going to be entering around one spot. No upper level winds are pushing them either to the east or west. They're just kind of setting up shop there and continuing to just pour down on you for a pretty extended period of time. So all in that is what I'm saying is that heavy rain and potentially localized flooding is going to be a concern on Sunday because we're not expecting as much overall upper level flow to steer those storms. So if you have plans in the mornings, either Saturday or Sunday, you'll be okay. Just going to be warm out there. And then we're really just going to be waiting on that sea breeze, to start to move in a little bit from the East Coast. We're expecting the Gulf Coast sea breeze to already be well, eastward. And they will collide towards I-95 and around Jacksonville, and that's really going to pop up those storms. So heavy rainfall, frequent lightning, and as I had said, there is the potential for some gusty winds upwards of about 40 to 60 miles per hour in some of those thunderstorms. The tornado risk itself is very low. I will say the storms, when the collisions first, arrive or ignite, you have those easterly winds and those westerly winds colliding. You can sometimes get spin-ups. So we're not expecting widespread severe weather. We're not expecting a high risk of tornadoes, but don't be surprised if there are just one or two little spin-ups that the National Weather Service may or may not have to put out a tornado warning for, depending on where those collisions occur and how strong those surface and mid-level winds are when they actually collide with one another. So we'll keep a watchful eye out for that. I believe Chief Meteorologist Lewis Turner is going to be here working on Saturday and Sunday afternoon and evening. So he'll keep you safe and up to date with all of that for the weekend. As you kind of saw, I previewed there just for a quick second. We had Tropical Storm Andrea earlier in the week, well off in the North Atlantic. That storm got ripped apart by wind shear and moved into an area of much cooler waters in the North Atlantic there. So nothing more to do with that storm. Barry, Barry, is next name up on the list. And thankfully, we're not too concerned about anything in the tropics right now that would, hint at the idea even that a tropical storm or Hurricane Barry would be on the way. Nothing is showing that for at least the next 7 days. The vast majority of the thunderstorm activity has continued to be off the west coast of Central America there in the Eastern Pacific, not so much in the Western Caribbean. Thankfully for us, there's still been a little bit too much wind shear for organized convection to really get its act together and to try to form into something tropical. So that is expected to continue. There is, I'll try to say this as plainly as I can, like kind of an upper level trough or upper level disturbance, so to speak, over the Bahamas over the next couple of days. If that happened to work its way, from 30,000 feet up the whole way down to the surface, that could potentially be a little bit interesting. but we're not really, one, expecting that to happen, and B, we're not going to be too concerned about that either. So just another, kind of thing we're watching, but otherwise, no real tropical concerns here for the next 7 days. So here is that 7 day. Tomorrow, isolated to scattered thunderstorms between 95 and 301. Most of those storms will be done by sunset. And the lingering, just showers that are left around will all be over by midnight tomorrow night. Saturday, really watching for about 1:30 to 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Those sea breeze collisions will occur. Worst of the storms will likely be between about 2 and 6 p.m. on Saturday. So if you have late afternoon or early evening dinner plans on Saturday, there are going to be storms out and about. So just, make sure you stay weather aware. Have that First Coast News app downloaded on your phone, and those push alerts will get sent out to you if there happens to be a severe thunderstorm warning or even a tornado warning in the area. That'll alert you and let you know. So 2 to 6 is going to be the worst of it for Saturday. Most of the storms then will all push offshore by sunset Saturday evening. And then Sunday, we talked about it. Not only the same, collisions are going to occur, but the upper level flow isn't going to steer those storms offshore. So they are going to meander around much more. They're going to feed off the energy and the moisture in the area along some of the outflow boundaries from some of those thunderstorms. Sometimes the storms can merge together, create a much bigger, almost like moisture. That's a weird word to say. I don't like that, but moisture thunderstorm producing even heavier rainfall. So because of that, localized flooding is going to be a slightly higher concern on Sunday afternoon and evening. And those storms are pretty much between about 2 and 8 o'clock. Again, so the steering flow is not going to push them offshore any earlier than sunset even. And then looking ahead to next week, if you have anything going on next week, we're still pretty much stuck in this pattern. Daily chances for those afternoon and evening thunderstorms. If there's one day that looks the stormiest of those 4, I'd probably say Wednesday looks to be the worst, but we'll keep you up to date. Until then, enjoy the last dry evening here in Jacksonville that you might have for the next 7 days. Take care, folks.